Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at some really ancient wisdom, but through a totally modern lens. Think of it like this. We're hacking our own minds. We're trying to decode the very operating system of our own consciousness.
And that brings us to the core question for today. You see, the first three major obstacles you run into on this path, they're not random, not at all. They show up in a very specific logical order, almost like a series of security firewalls that are programmed to protect a core system. So the big question is, why that sequence? That's what we're here to figure out.
So here's our game plan. First, we need to define the system that we're actually trying to hack. Then we're going to break down the three firewalls one by one: the illusion of I, the doubt that creeps in right after, and the trap of just going through the motions. And finally, we'll put all the pieces together and see why this order is actually pretty genius.
All right, let's dive into section 1. We need to understand the system we're up against. I mean, when we talk about being stuck in a mental prison or some kind of matrix, what does that actually mean?
Well, here's the thing. This system isn't some evil computer out there in the world. Nope. It's an internal prison. It's one we build ourselves, piece by piece, out of our own beliefs, the values society pushes on us, that constant chase for more stuff, and, that little habit of always comparing ourselves to everyone else.
If you look at the source code of this system, you find what in Buddhist philosophy is called Samsara, this endless loop we get stuck in. And it's kept running by three main lines of code. First, ignorance, which is just not seeing things as they really are. Second, craving, that relentless feeling of wanting. And third, clinging, grabbing onto things and ideas and making them part of our identity. That's the code that keeps the prison walls standing.
Okay, so let's move on to the first major hurdle. The very first firewall we slam into is the foundation of our entire sense of who we are.
This firewall has a name, Sakaya Diti. And all it really means is the mistaken belief that there's some permanent, solid, real self sitting inside you. You can think of it as the core operating system of your personality. It's the unquestioned automatic assumption that your thoughts, your body, your feelings, that they are you.
And you can see this program running all day long, can't you? It's in the little things. This is my car, right? That creates this whole story of ownership and attachment. Or I am angry, where we totally fuse our identity with a passing emotion. This is my job, linking our entire self-worth to a role we play.
So how do you get past a firewall that fundamental? Well, the hack is mindfulness. It's about learning to just observe your thoughts and feelings from a little bit of a distance. You start to see them for what they are, just temporary events that pop up, hang around for a bit, and then fade away. They're not some permanent, solid you.
Now, you'd think that challenging that core I would be the end of it, but no. The system doesn't just roll over. It fights back. It activates a defense mechanism, and that brings us right to the second firewall.
This next firewall is called Vicikiccha, and it basically translates to skeptical doubt. The very moment your belief in a solid self starts to get a little shaky, your mind just gets flooded with uncertainty about this whole journey you're on.
And this is a totally normal, even predictable reaction. It's the old system trying to protect itself, trying to pull you back to what's familiar. It starts throwing up all these questions. Is this really the right path? Am I just wasting my time sitting here? Is any of this even real? It's just a defense protocol trying to maintain the status quo.
So what's the hack for this one? Well, you can't think your way out of this kind of doubt. Reading more books isn't going to cut it. The only way through is direct experience. As you keep practicing, you start to gather your own inner evidence. It's that direct, personal proof that makes the doubt dissolve, not just believing in something blindly. Okay, so you've started to loosen the grip of I, and you've navigated through that wave of doubt. But there's a third firewall waiting, and this one is way more subtle. It's a trap that has to do with the very tools you're using to get free.
This one's called Sailabhata Paramasa, and it's all about getting attached to rites and rituals and practices just for the sake of doing them, without actually understanding why you're doing them. It's almost like a bug in your spiritual software, where you get so obsessed with the how that you completely forget the why.
And you can really see the difference here. On one side, you've got empty rituals, like chanting words without knowing what they mean, or just blindly following rules because you're told to, or maybe becoming a collector of cool spiritual techniques. But on the other side, you've got purposeful practice, where you use those same tools to actually develop wisdom and see the world more clearly.
The hack for this is so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. You just have to keep reconnecting with your intention. Keep asking, why am I doing this? You have to remember that all these things, meditation, mindfulness, all of it,
They're just tools. They're the vehicle, not the destination. The destination is wisdom.
And that brings us to our final section. This is where we put all the pieces together, and we can really see the elegant, brilliant logic behind this whole sequence.
Just look at the flow. It's a domino effect. First, you start to dismantle that core belief in a solid I. Once that foundation starts to weaken, the skeptical doubt that was built on top of it, well, it naturally starts to fade away. And with that newfound clarity, you can finally see your practices for what they truly are. Just useful tools, not empty rituals you have to cling to.
You know, the most important thing to get here is that this is not just some random checklist of spiritual obstacles. It is a precise, systematic roadmap for taking apart that mental prison, starting from the very foundation, the self, and working its way up. It shows a really deep understanding of how our minds are wired.
And in the end, it all comes down to this. The real hack isn't some secret technique. It's just the patient, honest work of looking at your own mind with awareness and learning from what you see.
Which leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If getting past these first 3 firewalls is really just the beginning, just the entry point to decoding your own mind, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other, more complex, more subtle programs are still running deep inside just waiting for us to explore on the path to being truly free?